the different routes that you could go to get a tiny house. So you could build it yourself. You could also buy one that's already pre-built. You could also buy one that's like pre-owned, so one that's been lived in already, and someone's just looking to sell it to maybe upgrade their own house. Another option is to buy it from a builder pre-built. A lot of builders typically have like standard models that they'll build and then they'll sell. So that's also an option. Another option is to get it custom built by a builder, and that's actually the route that we've gone. We decided to go with a builder just because we were kind of strapped for time. So originally when we were first starting to think about moving into a tiny house, this was back in April, and it could have been actually in March. I think it was in March we were thinking about moving into a tiny house, and our lease was up at the end of May. So we were trying to find a solution to where we would not be out of a place for too long. So we were actually originally looking for pre-built tiny houses, so ones that were pre-owned, as well as ones that were pre-built by tiny house building companies. We were having a hard time finding a pre-built tiny house within our budget that also had all the things that we were looking for. I think we were mainly looking for a tiny house that did not have like a sewer system in it, just because we knew we weren't gonna be hooked up to a septic system, or we knew we weren't gonna be parked at like a RV spot to have RV hookups, things like that. So we were looking for a tiny house that had a composting toilet, and we also needed an off-grid system, and those typically are really, really expensive. So in the world of tiny houses, if you need an off-grid system, like say for instance like solar panels, that adds on about, I want to say 20,000, maybe like 15 to 20,000 additional, and this is all maybe Canadian, but it's also similar to US as well. So it's a huge increase for solar. We were kind of picky. When it comes to tiny houses, the layout is really important because that kind of indicates whether or not it's going to be spacious or if it's going to feel small. And so if you design a tiny house really well, it can feel really big and spacious, and you can't even tell it's that tiny. We were looking for tiny houses that had a really good design, but it was hard. So within the time frame, we weren't able to find a pre-built tiny house. We found one that we kind of liked, that we wanted to go with, that was really cheap, but it was already sold. So the builders that had built that tiny house asked us if we were possibly open to doing a custom built tiny house, because the price would be about the same. They didn't really charge extra for a custom built, so it made sense to us. Our builder also promised us that they could build our tiny house in a very short time period, and that was very attractive to us because of our time factor. Because we were going to be leaving our Toronto apartment at the end of May, come to find out because of Bella's surgery, we ended up moving it closer, so we were out of our place at the end of April to hopefully have a house by August. With construction, that doesn't always happen. Things don't always go as planned, things aren't on time. This was our first time doing anything like this. We've never bought a house before, we've never done any construction on a house that we've never owned before, so this is all kind of a new process to us. We should have consulted with Sean's dad, because he is actually he's owned his own business, was a general contractor for the majority of his working life. So we didn't really consult with him before we went ahead and signed the contract. So that was a mistake. So some things that you definitely want to make sure you go over your contract and you make sure that there's some dates in there. So completion dates, things like that, to put, you know, the company accountable for when your house is supposed to be built. They gave us a verbal commitment of mid-August, and they even said beginning of August, and that it could be delayed to end of August. But now we are in mid-October, so we're a couple months behind. Fun stuff. But if you think about it, if we were to have built the tiny house ourselves, it would have taken a lot longer. A lot of people I've seen in the videos, their tiny house tours, they always think that it's only going to take, you know, a few months, and then it turns out being over a year. So I'm kind of glad we didn't go that route of trying to build it ourselves. It would have been a lot cheaper, because building, it's mostly the labor that you're paying for that's really expensive. The materials aren't necessarily that much. So I'm really glad that we're working with a builder because they know a lot more about these things. We are going to build another tiny house. We're probably going to do it ourselves this next time. So we kind of just wanted to get a feel for a tiny life and how things work and how the tiny house is going to work. So we didn't have that much time to kind of figure things out, and we kind of wanted just to go straight into it. So that's kind of why we went with a tiny house builder, because the cost was going to be the same. They can custom build it to exactly what we're looking for. So a lot of the pre-built tiny houses that we saw for sale were built by regular people, so they didn't have some of the things that we were looking for. Some of the things that we really wanted was an RV certification for the tiny house, because that would allow us to insure the tiny house, which is really important. So that was the number one thing. And when you get these built tiny houses that are done by regular people, they don't have the professional finishes on it. We kind of wanted a nice tiny house, but there were some really nice ones, but again, because they were really nice, they were really expensive because of the materials and the labor that went into it. Yeah, we didn't really find any that were reasonably priced or within our price range that had all the things that we wanted. We're kind of running out of time. We just went for it because they could promise us that delivery time, which they ended up delaying for 2 months. It's really unfortunate because we really liked our tiny house builders, but because of the 2-month delay, it kind of brought this negative relationship. We were really frustrated because all we wanted was them to be honest to us and transparent and to provide us updates about what's going on, because this is kind of a big deal. It's our house. We're waiting for it. We don't have anywhere to stay right now. We're just crashing at our parents' place. You know, it's not ideal situation, and we're kind of putting our entire life on pause for this house. That's what we were waiting. That's what we're really hoping for, and that's why we wanted the August completion date, is so we can go out there, have some summertime, figure out tiny house living before the winter came. And now we're kind of going in fall, and it's going to be colder, it's going to be raining, and we're going to have to try to figure out all this stuff in all of that fun weather. So it's just going to be another challenge, and it's just going to be something to get used to, but we're going to be really happy when next summer comes around. So it's going to be fun, and we can't wait. It's a lot of stress going through this whole process and not really having too much control over things, kind of letting other people, trusting other people with it. That's kind of been our experience with the builder. Something else that I did that our builder really loved was I created a Google Doc. Most of the things that I'm sharing with our builder are things off of Pinterest, ideas of tiny houses. So what I did was I got a Google Doc, and I just put a running doc of everything that I wanted, all the ideas, because originally we were sending emails and it was just I was pasting in all the photos in the email. But then it became too many emails and it was like all over the place, and it was hard to like keep all the ideas and everything that we wanted in one place. So they really loved that. I wanted to make sure that they had the information that we wanted how our house to look. So that was why I wanted to make it as easy as possible so they didn't forget something that we really wanted. So yeah, so with that doc, I ended up just putting sections, so like outside, and then I put all the photos, and I also wrote a description because sometimes you can't really tell from the photos like what exactly you like in the photo. So I wrote a little description like, okay, I like the color of this outside, or I like this type of paneling on the outside. So that's kind of how I did it. That pretty much covers everything, I think, in regards to the builder, why we chose to go with the builder instead of building it ourselves or buying one pre-owned. If you like this video, give me a like, subscribe for more updates. If there's something else that you have any questions about, or something that you'd like to see me do in the future, a video that you'd like to see me do in the future, also you can leave a comment for that below. So yeah, stay tuned for more videos and updates.